Today we crack open a frosty cold one and give our monastic brewery guild a home base. This guild building would be 2 stories, a fun temple on the top and a bustling brewery down below. As both the temple and brewery are really detailed, each gets their own videos, with this one solely focusing on the beer making, wine producing bellows of this monastic brewery guild. As we basically always do, we start with our planning phase, which for this map I did with a much greater level of uncertainty than usual. We're gonna have the staircase in the middle like this, and then we can kind of have these long corridors to these sort of like rectangles perhaps. Long corridors that lead to sort of different areas. This is kind of interesting. This is different. And the reason I want to do it is just because it's like, okay, this is like a fun, different design. Okay, I don't mind that, but what if it was like a little bit more jaggedy? As we ventured to find a more engaging arrangement, we'd discussed the rooms we'd have. For now, we went basic. Storage, brewery, offices, and then the fight bit for the monastic brewery's special mug transporting sport, a thing which I fully explain in its own video. With a couple more tweaks, we'd land on our first blueprint. Yeah, and I like this as a general design as far as like you have big brewery here, big storage, the fight pit, then you have these like little things, and you've got long hallways that sort of divide them all. It's just a bit different from, say, making it a rectangle, because a lot of places are rectangles, you know, fair enough, but it can be a little bit boring. And if we're in a situation like this where it's underground so it can be whatever shape we want, why not change it up? This was solid and heading in the right direction. I mean, the idea of a more wild design was good, although the execution was slightly limited at this point. Meanwhile, the rooms chosen to fill out this place were pretty bland. However, more than any other building map I've done, this blueprint would change the most between the planning phase and the final product, from the actual shape of the floor plan to what the rooms contain. And a big reason for this is because I knew I wasn't in love with the blueprint and had in the back of my mind that I'd be open to rethinking and changing various parts of it. In turn, I wouldn't go through and fully place all the walls like I do on most building maps. Instead, I would go one room at a time, only placing the walls for the rooms when I was working on it. Well, apart from the octagon staircase, which sits in the middle of the map and needed to exist so I could space around it. Outside the 8-sided anomaly, this approach gave me the freedom to change the design plans really fluidly without needing to undo any work. In fact, this strategy works so well, I'll definitely consider doing this more in the future. With this said, it only made sense to start with the room I was 100% sure we'd have, and was overall just excited to dive in attempting one for the first time, this being the titular brewery. We're gonna just start with barrels. Like, I think we don't have to really like overthink this in some like grandiose, significant way. I think we can just put a bunch of barrels down. That is basically what breweries are. And I think one of the things we can do is we can kind of have like a couple stages of development. So I think like here maybe can be a bit more towards the end. We're also gonna splice in quite a lot of the like steampunk stuff, just to, I think, give it more. I don't know, I'm just gonna connect them with pipes. Like maybe that's something fun to do. Having piping all the way along, I think, is gonna just add to the aesthetic of, I don't know, brewery. Perfect, nailed it. Yeah, we want to add to the aesthetic of brewery, and this is going to achieve exactly that, which is amazing. So that's very exciting. The combination of steampunk stamps and barrels would work well, and the melding of these two together would be the main design journey we'd go on for this room. The other would be around the general structuring of our art assets, and as there were 3 distinctive big barrel stamps, I'd decided to create a distinctive section for each. Although what these sections would represent would be rather ambiguous in my mind. I honestly don't really know what stuff would a brewery be connected to, like what these pipes would be connected to. And honestly, I don't think I need to know. Like, I don't think me having like a really good understanding of how brewery works is a necessity. I think it could help. You know, I think it could definitely be useful, but it's not something I need to be like, you know, let me get my mechanical engineering degree out and explain exactly how this works. It's like, no, if it's just sort of generally looks like it could work, I think that's going to be good. This would lead us to placing down some barrels, then connecting a spree of pipes to them, along with some steampunk machinery, which would act as the equipment the monks used to make the brewery do brewery things. While placing these stamps, I was explicitly aware of their spacing. I wanted to emulate the clean and purposeful positioning vibe that is common in breweries, comboed with a level of density rigidity and compactness. This meant all the pipes and machinery were at specific angles and had specific and similar levels of separation between them and the other stamps, something which to me would lead to a great brewery manufacturing feel throughout. I'd also use a trick I've done before where to give the energy of there being more complex stamps than really exist, we'd combo some together. And it's like, that's maybe a little boring in itself, so you know, it doesn't look like a ton's going on there. So we can add small things like this, like these little glass, and it's just gonna make it look a lot more, I don't know, like stuff's going on here. So we can add those on top, and already it looks a lot more mechanical and steampunky. And then we can add maybe like one more. We could even add like a little Tesla coil. Oh, this hatch I think is good. You know, and maybe do we want to put these little Tesla coils down underneath? Yeah, perfect. And they can go underneath like that. And now all of a sudden this thing that looked like pretty kind of boring, didn't have a lot going on, just has these a lot more interesting elements, I think, sort of spliced into the mix and makes it more than just kind of a boring generator. And that's kind of one of the things that you have to do with Incarnate quite a bit is look at the stamps and combine them together, and doing that quite often makes things look a lot better. A lot of this process would be spent figuring out how to have the piping fit together, which was sometimes easy and sometimes strangely hard, mainly because to keep the clean and consistent separation between stamps, we'd have to move and re-angle them somewhat frequently. Although I enjoyed this process and would definitely use them again, especially as they help fill out the map, lining it with an aesthetic I really liked. Away from the machinery of it all, I did also want to have some more classical wine and beer production methods. So I think it could be fun to have like stairs like this that like lean against the side, but I don't just want to have these be like stairs. Let's make a little platform. So we're going to get like a table, and I think this just makes it like a little bit different from just, you know, like standard ladders against whatever these like barrels are. Cool. As we went, I'd reflect on my approach and mentality around the process. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is like one of the weird things about this map. It's like, well, I really don't know how breweries work or what breweries have or how beer is made or anything. And I'm just sort of like looking at the assets that Incarnate does have and trying to figure out like what exactly would make sense to go in these locations. What would make sense to sort of connect to these things? And it's an interesting combination of using what's available and not really having the actual knowledge of what should be there. But I think I'm doing an okay job. I was having a really good time with the improvised creation of interconnected imaginary machinery, so while I contemplated keeping it fairly simple, spacious, and minimal, I would end up just adding more and more assets. I think these improved the map, but they certainly weren't necessary. We could have kept this room more stripped down. While the future would bring a few small changes to the old beverage creation center, we'd be done for now. Before we put our things away and created the storage, chat would give a room suggestion, which would be the first step towards a total floor redesign. If they have magical alcohol, they should still have magic-y room. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I'm like saying, yeah, because I haven't planned for it. But that doesn't mean we're not gonna do it. And I'm thinking about where to put it. I think we could either, you know, we've got the head office and the regular office, and it could be probably the reception is the easiest one to get rid of. With this new room in mind and concepts of full redesigned brewing, we went to the only other room which 100% had a place on our map, the storage. And we can use some of these, like the ones that I've used here, which have like shelvings and flowers and stuff. But I think we can also place these racks down and then go through and pick out like interesting plants and stuff that could make for like special ingredients. And I think that's going to be kind of how we approach this, where it's a combination of like, you know, all your standards that you would expect a brewery to have, as well as a bunch of much more interesting stuff. The business of packing shelves, though, would be quickly interrupted as the floodgate of alternate room suggestions was open. Young grapevines. Oh, interesting. I'm seeing the grapes and I'm immediately like, do we have like a small vineyard in here? Ugh, there's so many options. There's so many options. And I'm feeling like we kind of have to, don't we? Oh my God, yes. Yeah, like an underground vineyard. I just think that's like a really cool idea. And it's just kind of like where? And what do we get rid of? Not sure. But, you know, we will. As I sat down to properly think through our now required new floor plan, Groovy Parsnip would throw out another room suggestion which demanded a place. Would it be good if there was some sort of guest bar? Yes. That would be such a good idea. Like, I maybe should have planned this a little bit more at the beginning. So it was finally time to pop some bottles and find homes for these new rooms. Let's maybe reorient. We want to have a vineyard. We're going to have a little guest bar. We'll just call it a small bar. It's not like a proper tavern or anything. It's just a small little area. I like the idea of there being an office, just like to denote that they do administration here. The other thing I want to point is like a barrel storage room. Honestly, we're going to put the barrel storage room here. We're going to put the magic creation section here. We're going to put the vineyard here, and we'll put the bar there. And then at the end of the bar will be the office. I think this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have it go round in the order of where it's created. So we sort of have a vineyard section where, you know, they grow it. Then we're going to have the magic section where maybe it's like they can do stuff to the ingredients or whatever. Then we have a storage room, which is just the ingredients. Then we get to the brewery itself. Then we get to like the barrel storage area where this is like the completed done drinks. Then we get to the bar, and then at the very end would be like a little administration office. And I think that makes sense of like the full process of like, you start here and you go all the way around and you end sort of at the administration. Do we even have the only entrance here and it's just a spiral? Is that maybe too crazy? I think that's what we're gonna do. I think that's kind of stupid. I don't think it really makes sense. I think it's obviously a bad idea to build that, especially if like your barrel storage is here and you have to just walk all the way back through every section to get to here. I think that's fun though. I think that's fun having it be like a little spirally map. So that's what we'll do. 2 hours into the process and quite a redesign in the books, we'd end with a floor scheme I was much happier with, and in general would lead to some much more interesting interior design choices and room decorations. Instead of continuing on to the storage area, I wanted to add a small extension between the octagon and the brewery now that was empty space, placing only a desk there. That is like a little reception check-in desk. And I like that it's like very tucked in, so like narratively the person has to like crawl over it every time. Building out our spiral brewery, I'd kick off with room number 1, the vineyard. At first we would have this be mostly grapes, but decided to expand this out to house many other smaller plants, which would act as the special crazy ingredients which would make these monastic brews so wickedy wild and special. This would narratively lead to a situation where this room was more an in-house testing room rather than where they actually mass produce the crops that are needed for the various drinks. I think maybe like some of these gardens could be like run by the brewery or whatever. Like they get their ingredients from here. They just have a small little workshop. I should also mention that this here brewery makes both beer and wine, something that doesn't really exist. If the answer of, oh, it's a fantasy world and this is done for fantasy reasons isn't good enough, if you need even more justification, you could consider this to be where the brewery do their experimentation and create new drinks, while the buildings that mass produce the drinks are elsewhere. If you need even more reasoning than that, then I don't know, magic. The answer is magic. With the vineyard done, I'd go back and complete the storage room where I'd place plates on the racks filled with the same plants and ingredients that were being grown in the vineyard/greenhouse. I think this is a small thing, but these are the sort of small visual decisions which make the map feel a lot more interconnected and the theoretical work and lives that exist here more realistic. Once again though, our storage room's creation would be interrupted by more room suggestions. When I inferred before there'd be no more, I was well aware I was tricking. Haha, get pranked. This time we're actually done though, but maybe I'm lying again. Who knows? Anyway, this was the suggestion. And maybe a special quarantine room for yellow mold that is used in some recipes. I really like the idea of like a little quarantine room. I'm just thinking where we could like slide that in. Like maybe here? Maybe like in here somewhere? When it came to picking a plant for this room and the subsequent narrative, it'd be affected by the stamps available in Incarnate. What plant can we use that could be like tucked away? Ooh, carnivorous plant. Maybe it's not like mold, maybe it's like these carnivorous plants. That could be interesting. Yeah, okay, I like having this little carnivorous plant room. Carnivorous plant room that the party will, for no reason, force their way into a side. When creating our alchemy lab, I'd follow a principle I use constantly, and this was everywhere on the map. You know, once again, like what I want to do is I want these to be at like different angles and stuff, and even though we're going to make them at like parallel lines, or like perpendicular lines and everything's linear, like, you know, we have those going vertically and then these are horizontal, you know, vertical, horizontal. you know, horizontal, sort of vertical, but with horizontality. Yeah, it's a word, look it up. And I think, yeah, having like 2 benches like this, maybe, is gonna be good. Yeah. This map as a whole would be entirely right-angled, which gives it that clean and structured feel, which to me makes sense in a monastic brewery. And when I finally do give the maps curve or place items which are off-angle, the deviation from the rigid scheme is to show a lower level of care in those specific areas. Furnishing our little lab wouldn't be super simple, as there isn't a great array of alchemy equipment or wizard materials, so we need to go with something else. So I think we're gonna have to like do something a little bit creative. And what I'm thinking is I think we go more to our steampunk stuff, because we've got a little bit of the steampunk right here. Yeah, leaning on these and maybe connecting these with like tubes, like pipes, and that's how we can kind of get across the sort of feel of that is maybe what we're gonna do. Yeah, I kind of like that as an idea. And because I like it as an idea, we're gonna do it as an idea. Perfect. While this was fun to do and would lead to some unique looking equipment, which I think gives this area a unique feel to it, I also really like that this created design mirrors the same sort of invented manufacturing that we have in the brewery, but on a smaller scale. A nice level of symmetry for the map. As good as this decision was, I thought I was forced to make it more than I actually was, because I didn't think there were any good lab equipment type stamps, which was wrong. And these are actually perfect. I didn't realize quite how perfect these were, and I was being a big buffhead before, saying they only have the broken ones. What a dweeb. What a dweeb past me was. God, remember me 10 minutes ago? With the wizard stuff, they have like alchemy equipment, or as they call it, ambelic equipment, which is like awesome. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Except it's only the broken variant, which is not what we want, because we don't want it to be broken. That guy. Yeesh. We ended up with 1 steampunk table, 1 potion table, then I'd add a 3rd table and have it be a combination of the 2. A funky little potion making station thingy I really liked. We added a few more items like ingredients and recipe scrolls. Then I decided to change the flooring for this room and all others so they all have their own floor design, something I'll often do. I think it brings a little bit more diversity and just makes the map pop a little bit more, and it makes each room feel a little bit more special and unique. That's kind of the aim of it. It doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense, but that's why I do it. Before we get back to the hanging thread everybody keeps expectingly hoping we'll return to, the storage room, I would place more walls. Which is funny I should say that, because now's the perfect time to talk about this map's walls more generally. Honestly, I don't really like their color or design. I mean, they're fine, maybe, but I like actively changing up the stamps I use, so I'm not just using the same things over and over. This also forces me to design around them, which can lead to further unique design choices. However, as we've been doing one room at a time while placing them, I had to be really careful to make sure all the walls were the same size, in this case size 60. I'd also adopted a technique I've recently learned, which is to place connecting blocks on longer sections so the walls don't have the edge of the stamp showing, which looks both bad and also not good, something undesired. Meanwhile, this connecting blocks makes them look like one long section, which is A, not bad, B, good, and C, desired. Another technique to make walls 3 positive things is to place square pillars at the corners to equally cover up the weird connection between the stamps. Unfortunately though, for the pillars, I hadn't been so purposeful with the sizing. I don't think I've made them all 70. I think they're all over the place as far as size is concerned. Oh yeah, they are. Okay, I'm gonna quickly spend the time going through and making all of these 65, because I do want the map to be uniform, and it's like if I spend this much time on the map, I don't want it to be undone by just sort of me being lazy about the sizing of the pillars in between the walls and people looking at the map and being like, they're all incorrect, and it's like, yes, I know, I just got lazy with that, and that's why it's slightly different. This is a perfect example of a small thing which can be tedious to fix even though it may only take 5 minutes, but can be an unfortunate focus of the map because they're a notable error. The main problem is that when you notice them, you not only can't unsee it, you can't not focus on it. So while these may seem small and not that prominent, I usually try to take the time to fix them so all the hard work on the map isn't massively undermined by a small design folly followed by laziness. With the map back on track, we'd shimmy to the barrel storage room, which is by far the most boring and uninteresting room. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's just like, of course, they're just like, I think there just sort of needs to be a bunch of barrels in the map because they have barrels, right? Like, I don't know, it just feels like a necessity to me. And not having it would just be kind of like weird. So that's kind of why I'm like putting this stuff down, because I'm like, well, they have to have the barrels. Why would they not have the barrels? We then quickly skedaddle to the bar and make it a really simple area, which is designed just for the employees to grab a drink after work. Although I wanted it to be slightly more than just a bar and some tables. Let's have a plant. Yeah, let's just have a little bit of plant life. Why not? There's not a lot of vegetation on the map. And by that I mean, we have a little room of vegetation because I'm a dirty liar and I lied just now. But I think having a tree on this map is going to be, I don't know, just like, that's the kind of thing you might see in a bar. You know when you see trees in a bar? Well, it happens. It happens. Don't fact check. Hopefully no one here's ever been to a bar. With everyone agreeing that all bars have trees as their only decoration, we ventured to our final room, the office. I'd make it a little smaller than the space that was available because I like having some asymmetry on the map. I wanted to avoid it basically being a rectangle, but this was maybe a mistake and having the room fit the space would probably be best. As far as the stamp choices, it'd just be a simple office, not a ton to say here. So much so, there's literally no clips of me even talking about the room in any capacity. I was talking about chat's homebrew creations the whole time I made it. This brings us to the last part of the map, the stairs. I haven't really talked about the octagon in the center of the map, which is maybe unfair as it's not only gone through quite a few changes, it's the centerpiece which inspired the map's entire design. In summation, I would say it took a weird amount of effort to make it look fine. Apart from the reception desk, all this room really needed were stairs, one set going to the temple above and one going downstairs to the fight pit. For the downstairs, I put a shadow to indicate the stairs were going down, which looks good, so I wanted to see if we could do it for the stairs that are above. Is there a way to do like a shadow for this though? Wait a second. Are we able to do a shadow for this, one object, but instead of doing dark, we do light. We do a bunch of white light. Ooh, or yellow, because yellow's more light. Yeah, I think this is kind of working. The yellow's maybe like a bit too much. Oh, that's better. But I think that gets across the fact that that's the top floor goodly. With the map basically complete, I would go through making some tweaks, which would involve changing the background color to something other than orange. While the orange was nice, I tried a bunch of other variations. I'd eventually pick a darker color to help accent the rooms, have them pop more as they themselves are pretty light in color. I'd also ask chat if they had any last minute suggestions. If it's underground, shouldn't there be lanterns and torches? Mark, I'm just going to ignore that message because the answer is yes, and I don't want to put them on the map. You know what? I don't want to put them on the map. I don't put them on all my maps. And I forgot this time, and I'm not going to do a fucking thing about it. What are you going to do? What are we going to do about it? I'm just going to ignore it. Waves hand, theater of the mind. There are torches everywhere. Yeah, 100%. Like, I very rarely put lights on the map in general just because I just think it kind of clunks with some of the other items and just like not having it off looks cleaner. I mean, you did ask for remaining things, but then I know I did. And some of the suggestions I was going to take on board and some of them I was going to dismiss. Or not dismiss, but recognize, internalize, and then say no. And that's what I did. And with that great suggestion put to the side, our map would be complete. Amazing. We're done with our map. Feels super good. And boy howdy, did this go through a lot of transformations. This is a very much not the map we had planned at the very beginning, and much for the better. We kicked off with our brewery, and I love the steampunk combination with all the barrels. I think it looks really cool. I think it's a really fun room. I'm keen to make more breweries like this in the future. We can kind of go through in a linear way. I really like the way we have a simple sort of vineyard area, and then they can come here, and this is where they do some of their brewery experimentation. We go through here, good storage room. I really like making this storage room. Often I just have barrels and crates, but I really like having these racks and then having like all the different ingredients on plates. I think it looks really good, and you know, having these barrels with these grains in it, it's a lot of fun, a bit different from what I usually do, but it's probably a technique I'll start to do more, where I have like open ingredients within a storage room, so it's not all barrels, which if we skip down here, it's all barrels, and it's a bit more plain and boring, and I think this is the vegetables of this map, and it's like, hey, there just kind of had to be a lot of barrels in the map. On the map, it's like they make beer and wine, so they have barrels. It's just sort of a natural consequence of this place. Then I think this bleeds really nicely into a little bar just for the employees. So it's pretty like underwhelming. It doesn't have many accoutrements. The only thing it really does have is this tree, but it's a simple thing, and I like that. And then we go to, you know, the head person's office, and I made it very small. Probably didn't need to make it quite this small, but you know, whatever. I think it's a good map. It's something entirely different. I like that it spirals. Makes no sense. We were going to have them connecting here and here and here, and we got rid of that. We said, nah, let's have it do a fun spiral. And all together, along with tons of other choices we made, I love this map. I'm super happy with it. I think it's really fun. It's something I've never made before, and I think I did a good job of it. So yeah, amazing. And we had some good help with a lot of the suggestions from chat is what made this so good. So yeah, 2 thumbs up. Let's go. I love this map. I'm really happy with what it became, and when combined with the temple that goes with it, I think they make for an awesome monastic brewery. If you're keen to get access to this map or any of the maps I've made, check out the Patreon, or you can go there just to support the channel. Thanks to everyone who currently is. You are all massive legends. The maps are also individually available on Etsy. We make everything live on Twitch. Subscribe to the channel for more D&D content like this. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.